The biggest week in Reading Football Club's recent history begins. Attention turns to the short-term future of the team on the pitch and the long-term stability of the club off it. Will the takeover finally be announced this week after nearly 2 years of the club being up for sale? Can the team and staff, a group who've given their absolute all for us this season, secure a playoff spot in the final game of the season in front of what will be a huge crowd at the Stade DSCL? At the moment, all we can do is play the waiting game, a skill that the entire fan base has become expert at. One thing is for absolutely certain, though, we're all Reading Football Club, aren't we?
All Reading
Come
right
on,
here. Come on, you Royals. We can do it. I
we can
think.
do it. How are you? Hello, Ross, by the way. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Um,
Very nice intro. You told me you had a nice written intro. It was
yeah,
very
I've
nice.
written it down on a piece of paper. It's nice. It's good.
Very good. It's very good.
Um,
Paper and everything. Yeah.
Pencil.
Yeah.
How? My voice just went there. How are
Mm.
you feeling? How are you? What's your vibe right now?
I've been feeling really great all season about this, as you know. And then the first thing that's knocked me all year is looking at this last game of the season and looking at the form table, which maybe we'll get into later. But the form of Leyton Orient versus Huddersfield form right now, quite literally could not be more different. So yeah, a lot of my mind is on the quality of our hopeful saviors. But as we said last week, Huddersfield owe us. So hey,
Mm.
maybe they'll do it.
I think it's we'll get into kind of permutations later on in the preview. It's pretty straightforward, as you can probably imagine. And I'd be gobsmacked if you weren't aware of them already, coming into this pod. But we will go through those anyway and what needs to happen. I feel all right. I feel good. Like it was a must-win game, as we all know, on Saturday against Bristol Rovers.
Yeah.
Ironically, the only two games that were kicking off at half 12 were us and Leyton Orient.
Yeah.
They scored in the 66th. We scored in the 67th. So
I know, it
it's
was mad. I don't know who, I don't think, I'm not sure this kind of person exists. I was about to say, oh, those neutral League One fans out there, they were really
yeah,
served a
exactly.
smorgasbord
Yeah,
on Saturday, but I'm not sure how many, neutral League One fans
I love that. Who
are.
do you support? Just League One.
Just League
What?
One. I
Just
just
the
love
league.
the drama of it all,
Just the league.
like of not quite being ready for the Premier League.
Um, yeah, well, look, we'll get into that in just a moment. We're on episode 417, would you believe? Uh, I don't know. Well, that's how numbers work, isn't it? One after the other, but it just seems like a
Indeed.
lot now.
Yeah. They just keep
417
climbing.
episodes is a
It
lot. I
feels
mean,
like
I
the
don't think
400 wasn't that long ago, but it is April, the
that's true.
thing, yeah, time moves fast. Season's
But it's
almost
just,
over.
I don't know. That seems like a lot of episodes. We've got like 1.7 million downloads
Wow.
in total. That's
I
just a
don't,
lot, isn't it?
that is a lot in total. Where did you pull that one out from then?
It's on the Podbean dashboard thing.
Oh, okay. You're going into, there we go. All
So whether
right.
or not that's just on Podbean or whether or not that's over, I don't know.
I don't
I'm not
know.
sure.
I don't know how these
Anyway,
things work.
whatever. Episode 417. A huge thanks to Valdemar and his team at ZCZ Films. We've got some new. We keep teasing this. We've got some new stings, as they call them in the industry. Wim's
Mm.
going to do some new stings, and we've got some other bits knocking around that will probably be realistically, after the playoffs
Wim's
now.
done the stings,
Oh, he's
just to
done
be
them. Oh, he
clear.
has done them.
I'm
Okay,
just
fine. Just
lazy.
you,
That's yeah,
just
it's me. You
holding them
can
up.
blame me. So if you want to organize a pressure campaign, with the listeners to get me to actually up the quality of this stupid podcast,
Well, we
it's me you need to pressure right now.
we've got exclusive use of some popular rock music from
Mm.
a Reading band, which I won't mention. But that's coming as well. So it's exciting times at the Tilehurst podcast, regardless. However, we're very excited. We're all very excited about Saturday. We're very, very keen on that. Before we get into that, let's do the review of an absolutely essential win on Saturday at the Memorial Ground. So we're going to get into that in the review.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Oz!
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films, showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.
Right, Ross, we went off to Bristol, down to Bristol, across to Bristol, across geography.
Yep. Down
You
the
haven't asked me
river.
about Bristol. I don't mind Bristol as a place.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I just know that Bristol's all right. Like I've been to Bristol a few
Mm.
times. I was looking for my list of places that you're not fond of. But Bristol's quite a nice spot.
Yeah.
I feel like now the question will be though for away fans, do you prefer going to Bristol City or Bristol Rovers? Because I thought their stadium and their atmosphere looked pretty good on Saturday just gone. There are a
Yeah.
lot of them in there.
I think there's a big disparity between the two, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's quite clear to see who the bigger club in Bristol is, both by league standing, but also facilities, I would say.
It's funny though, like
Um,
I'm still again, like I guess this is how I'm starting the review this week because I was just impressed by the turnout, and the atmosphere they generated for a large portion of the
mm.
game, and obviously I'm not super cut up that their team wasn't able to, follow through and give them something to cheer about. Awful, awful time of the season for them to go on the run, that they've
Oh,
gone
I
on.
mean, I'm just looking at the league table before we get into us. I mean, they're effectively relegated now.
Yeah, and they
Um,
fell in only, we talked about it. I talked about it on the preview last week. They fell in only like a few weeks ago.
mm.
And they're basically gone. So it's just mad. Like they got one okay result against that Wrexham who were kind of wobbling at the time. And yeah, no, just awful time for them to have that.
It's
So to get that turnout, I thought was quite impressive.
it's a complete collapse on their part. It really is.
Yeah,
They'd have to overturn what a 14 goal swing and
yeah.
win and hope that Burton lose. It's not going to happen, is it?
And
So
they rode that crowd, atmosphere well in the first half, I thought. And I mean, we got really, I'm not going to say lucky. I think John Burrell was really, really good.
mm,
And that was a large part of what was
it
going
was.
on. But they put in, effort, at least for their fans, in this particular game for sure.
I mean, certainly start again. We were pretty poor. We we weren't there at all. I think there was growing frustration. Certainly online, and also I guess people in the stadium as well. But despite the fact it was inflatable day, it
Yeah,
we needed
that
to
was
win the
really
game.
funny, by the way. Just real quick, you mentioned inflatable day. I think I'm going to call this pod something like sad inflatable or something like that because the halftime footage was amazing of like a
Yeah,
bunch of people standing there with inflatable bananas and other naughty bits and just looking like really dour and eating like a Snickers at the
yeah.
same
It,
time.
it, it was it wasn't good. Naughty bits is a good one actually. Naughty
Yeah,
bits
yeah.
because that perfectly describes the first goal because the pass, the
Oh,
assist from player of the season in waiting Charlie Savage was
player of the season.
unreal.
Come on now.
Unreal. And the finish from wing was amazing. And it was absolutely brilliant to see the bounce on the terrace and behind the goal, because we took
Yeah,
a lot of fans down as we have done all season to
yeah.
various footballing outposts.
That was a proper big good celebration there.
Yeah.
I mean both of the goals, but the first one in particular that's a proper pandemonium limbs, to use a slightly dated term now,
Mm.
kind of thing going on there. I thought that was really good, and all of the players, knew immediately how important that goal was. Just a shame that, as you said earlier, Orient literally scored a minute later.
Yeah, but all we had to do at that point was win. We kind of
Yeah,
I said this a few weeks ago. I always thought I was going to go to the last game, and that's proved. Had we not won, then it would have been curtains, and that would have been a real travesty on
yeah,
on everyone at the club. So to take it to the final game and still be in with a big chance of getting to the playoffs is incredible, really. And
yeah.
as I said, we'll talk about it in the preview, but I don't want it to end now. I desperately want to be in the playoffs. I think it's just desserts. What happens in the playoffs is irrelevant, but getting to that, this group of players deserve another 2 games at least to give it their
Give it
absolute
the
all
beans,
and
see where
but
it see
yeah,
where it gets them, It's funny
exactly.
because I feel like, I mean, obviously, like this time last year, we didn't have a chance we didn't have a mathematical chance of getting into the playoffs, so it's a little bit
Mm.
different. But I feel like, this time last year we were like, all right, I'm ready for the season to end now. Like, let's get a break, let's do all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Whereas this year it's like, no, like this team is good, and we don't know what's going to happen in the summer. So yeah, let's push now.
And ironically, that game against Blackpool, the last game of the season, was, probably one of the most enjoyable games I've been to in quite a few years. And we had nothing
Yeah,
to play for.
yeah,
So you can imagine what it's going to be like at the stadium on Saturday. So yeah, look, we had to win. We did. Chem Campbell scored in the 94th minute, fifth
something like
minute, right at
that.
the
Yeah,
end, basically to make it academic. Huge result given what Leighton Orient were doing as well in their game against Wickham, who were in absolute free fall, by the way.
yeah, below
Like, you want to play a
Stockport
team in
now.
the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yes, please, Wickham. Like they're all over the shop. They might not even get third now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'm not sure what happened. Sorry, I got slightly distracted there because I remembered something from the Blackpool game, which was the last year, when we played Blackpool, we were trying to beat our best goals scored total in
Yeah.
like 10 years or something like that. So that was 68 goals that we broke it with. So we're currently sitting on 66 goals. So if we score two, yeah, or more against Barnsley, we'll equal and then maybe go on and extend that record, basically. So it could be another season in a row where we either meet or exceed a goal scoring record from the last few years.
which
So
which would be quite incredible, seeing as our main striker, whose name I literally can't remember, left in January. So, you know,
right. Yeah. I do you know that the only reason I've become quite interested in our striker, whose name I can't remember, who left in January, the only reason I've become quite interested in his story again is because it seems that he's managed, along with Jay Rodriguez, to freeze out the Disney Deadpool lad who was starting up front for them. So it's just
yeah.
quite amusing, just you progress that fast through the leagues, you're always going to end up with dead weight, even in some very, in places you didn't expect to have it.
And what's also amusing about that, as a side note, is that our fans are more obsessed with that striker whose name we can't remember now than when he was at our flipping football club. It's
Well,
insane. The amount of posts I've seen about him over the last couple of days.
the best
Just,
player is, the person you don't have. Like Ben Elliott's the best player in the world at this point. He's been gone so long. Like when I saw him with John Ryan at some community trust event recently, I was like, oh, so he is alive. So that's good to
yeah,
know because I was a little bit worried about Ben Elliott. I thought he'd gotten
it's
hidden behind
all
the
those
rowing
people that have
machine.
voted Gerald Dorset as player of the season.
Right, right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you know what, that leads us nicely on actually to the next bit. So, we've had we know that our player of the season will be announced after the game on Saturday, which I think is a really good move. Personally, I think there's a number of things there. Really, the first thing is it keeps people right at the end because worst case scenario, we don't get playoffs. There is a temptation for everyone to just bog off to the pub and go, right, see you next season or whatever, which I think would be a shame because this team deserve all the plaudits that they are going to get, whether they get playoffs or not. Right. So that's the first thing. So it keeps people around because, this is probably the tightest player of the season award we've had, well, that I can remember. Possibly the championship winning side, you might say, well, that was obviously close, but this one I think is wide open. I think there's 3 or 4 players that could quite easily win it. So that's the first thing in terms of keeping people engaged. The second thing is that obviously the club are very, very concerned that people get on the pitch, regardless of the result, and that will be a disaster for us, especially if we get playoffs, because there's a temptation there where the DFL will go,
Yeah.
oh, we said about not going on a pitch. Yeah, we've
Yeah.
just done that. So here's a 3-point deduction. Oh, you're
There's
out of the playoffs now.
already, I
So,
mean, as
like,
we know, there's already people out there writing articles about how the other clubs and stuff like that. So if, yeah, we don't want to give them
exactly.
any, excuses to do that. I don't know if you're going to mention Savage,
Yeah.
in your player of the season chat. So, okay, can I just quickly say, I thought the left side, if you take a look at the shots for the game against the Gas, they're all on the left side. So it's quite interesting, how much we used to be very right side dominant, especially when Craig was in the team towards the start of the year.
Mm.
But we managed to produce a game with some, more than 10 shots, most of them down the left side. I do think Savage was good. But importantly, I thought this was Garcia's best game in yonks, like a long time. And yeah, just like looking at the stats and things like that, they kind of bear that out. He was able to be very creative. But anyway, I wanted to preempt some Savage chat there because you briefly mentioned the first goal, which he had a role in,
Yeah.
obviously, and beautiful goal. But is that where you want to start your player of the
No,
season
I mean,
chat?
I want to ask you, given that player of the
Oh,
season votes are on us now, who is your, we talked about it for a little while. We probably started talking this in about February time, but who is your player of the season for Reading Football Club? Who are you hitting vote on the virtual button?
there always is like I do know what you mean. Like we discuss it earlier and earlier every single year. It's like well, like right now it would be this person, but in a few years or in a few weeks' time it could be somebody else. Yeah, who do I pick? I mean I think people know that I'm very much behind Pereira as the player of the season. I'm trying to pull up his information on just
He
how
had
many
a
points he saved us.
While
Go
you
ahead.
do that, he had a great game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Absolute. I mean, he was great in the last home game as well. He had an absolute blinder.
Yeah.
Um,
He really
so
was. There's one like where in the first half where the guy starts pulling away because he's like 100% sure that he's scored. He's gotten such a good connection on it and he's put it into the corner and Pereira's still gotten down to it. Yeah, I think it was 2.7 expected goals on target that he added to his record of goals kept out this season. So yeah, statistically he's been fantastic. He's been up there with the Wrexham keeper and some other lad all season as one of the best keepers in the entire league. And when you think where we were a season ago, 2 seasons ago, really since the decent season that Raphael had, all the way back in the championship in Pauno's first season, it's really been since then, I think that we've had a season where we can just rely on one goalkeeper. We haven't had to worry. The one time or one of the two times that we saw Button this season, he did something crazy against, was it Gillingham? I can't even
I remember. I
remember.
remember that. Well, we had CBC as well, who had some absolute clangers.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously Norcott has been the one
Yeah,
who's come in the
really telling.
background. Yeah, but isn't it funny like the yes, telling, but like on that point too, like there's a lot more to unpack there, but I think for Pereira's sake, that's all been going on in the background and none of us have cared a jot because Pereira is just exceptional. I think that the most worrying time of the season was when we didn't have him back in the early autumn. And him coming back against Exeter. I just remember that being a big moment for the season. Got that away win that night. And yeah, I just think Pereira is the best keeper we've had since definitely Raphael. And yeah, he's just been, in terms of the number of points generated, I think the only wing in his silly, cannonball foot can really compete there. So yeah, Pereira for me.
I think it's quite telling as well, in terms of Al Habsi, because we haven't really mentioned him for ages, but he was player of the season. Obviously, Federici got it as well. Um, Alex McCarthy, I think he's been in contact. I don't know if he's ever won it, but we've had quite a few goalkeepers over the years that have done that. Are
Yeah, yeah.
you, are you take Pereira out of it?
Okay.
It, if he was a non-factor, who would be your outfielder for the player of the season? And that sounds a ridiculous question because you just told me who your player of the season is.
I was gonna say, yeah, why don't you tell me yours first? And then, because then I can like sort of generate one. Because I feel like there's a few different answers. At the start of the year, I was all really about Michael Craig, right? And I banged on about him for a while. I think that it's impossible to ignore what Andre Garcia has done, but I think that the back half of the season has also shown that there are limits to what you can do with a 17-year-old in first team men's football.
Yeah.
I think that Nibs has continued to be Nibs. And on that sort of like, I talk about the like Opta analysts sort of like points kind of thing that they have for League One, and how Wing has been top of that many times and is currently top of that list. Nibs has made his way onto that list too of the top 10 players in League One this season. So, he was already good last year, has improved again. And I don't think anyone would be mad if he picked up the award. Personally, I think that
Yeah.
if we look at like the whole spine of the team and who we want to remember from this era, and when we look back at like players of the season, season. I think that if we look back and we see it was Wing and then Nibs, will be like, yeah, it's about right. Like both of those players were, if you want to like reward them for how they played over the course of like a few years, Nibs would be, another guy. But if it's just for one season and the amount of points that have been saved for us again, I can only see Pereira. So
Yeah, I think the four that you've well, we haven't even Bindon as well. I think
I haven't even mentioned my boy Bindon. There
well,
you go.
exactly.
See,
I mean, who are the contenders? So Bindon is definitely up there, even though he was completely mugged off by the EFL, which we'll talk about, towards the end of the review. Pereira's definitely up there based on the reasons that you've given. Uh, Nibs, Wing, and obviously my man Charlie Savage. I have heard shouts for Mbenge. I don't think he's played enough to constitute being a player of the season. I think he's obviously had his injury problems as well. I don't think out of those five, anyone else gets into it. I think had Sam Smith stayed and he kept scoring goals, potentially he would have been in the mix as well. So
I
I
think with
don't.
Mbenge, can I just say real quick with Mbenge because I agree with you. Like I would not really have him in my list for like players of the season, but I still think this has been a year of improvement for him in terms of bringing up the floor of his performances. Like
Yeah.
he has always been capable of some really athletic stuff and some really impressive, football plays. But this season, I think that what he's done is I don't think he's ever really had a full, like a season where he's had to like fully sink into the week in, week out center back life, with the same partner, which he's had for a good, 60%, 70% of this season. And then obviously he has started to miss games in 2025. But yeah, I just think that he hasn't given us many clangers in Bengay this year.
No, he hasn't. When he has played, he's been fairly consistent. I just think, ironically, he's not played consistently enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I do kind of know what you mean. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think really what I think is evident is that there are so many players that could win both player of the season, but also if we had the award for most improved player as well. And I think a lot of other clubs do quite a lot of awards, and I
Yeah.
always felt that we kind of maybe didn't get it right with just player of the season and goal of the season. Like I think there needs to be more than that, really. Young player, most improved. I think is a really positive one to do. So I think overall it's difficult, and the reason it's difficult is because this time last year this team was really fragmented, like the way that it was perceived in the fan base, the way that performances were seen. Pereira wasn't rated at all really by the club. Wasn't featuring really
I was
at all.
confused why we brought him in when he first
Yeah.
came in. Like, prove me wrong.
Charlie Savage was definitely a maligned figure within the fan base. There was a lot of heat on him. He wasn't playing. People were critical of his performances. He was probably critical of his own performances as well. I don't think Sellers particularly liked him as a player, or definitely didn't trust him. And then, there's so many other players. Wareham wasn't on the scene. It was all, we were moving in the right direction, but there wasn't that kind of, as you say, that kind of bringing up that floor of performance and that overall base that we had in terms of these performances week in, week out, in terms of the consistency of these players. So the other thing I would say is that this is a group that you can trust to get out of situations. Earlier on in the season, maybe there was an element where they would, say in inverted commas, but let each other down and not get results where they should have done. The only exception to that, of course, is the Lincoln game, which was horrendous and could
Yeah,
end up costing us. But
that's a real shame. Yeah.
overall, I think there's so many players that you could go, yeah, player of the season and most improved. But for me, all we've got to go on is that player of the season, and it's Charlie Savage because of the sheer improvement that he has shown, the way that he's bounced back from not being part of the team on a regular basis, goal contributions. He got most assists in League One. I think he's on like 9 now, which is the most assists in League One, which is incredible, really. And he's positively for us outside the club. He's never talked about. He wasn't even a shoe-in or even mentioned for the EFL Team of the Year. Doesn't get any plaudits from anyone else. Rarely makes the EFL Team of the Week and all this kind of stuff. So that's a real positive for us. But within the fan base, the way that he's seen and his improvement and his energy, for a young player that's really just starting out in his career, I think he's had an absolutely phenomenal season. I really do, and that's why hit and vote on Charlie Savage. So I think it's going to be exciting to know who gets it, and you will know that whoever's got it has flipping deserved that.
Yeah,
Like
that's a
that
very
has
good
been an
point.
absolute, tug of war to get that. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
probably the one that you would look back in years to come and go, wow, that was a really, really good team. And obviously
Okay.
the first team to ever win at Wembley in a playoff final. So
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Especially the new Wembley. Well, no, any Wembley, right? I don't know what happened to the old Wembley. Come on now, Ross. Yeah, I do think that he's definitely improved a lot. But I think that one of the things there is we should think about how many players have benefited from the Hunt takeover of the first team. Not that Sellers was, if intentionally trying to damage the
Mm.
development of any players or anything like that, but
Oh,
there
not
are
at all.
no, but I totally understand what
I
you mean.
don't
Like
think you
some
got it
players
right.
prefer different, like managers prefer different players. It's just how it is. But yeah, I think the obviously Savage is one who's benefited from the switch over to Hunt. I think that Wareham was already kind of working his way into Hunt, into Sellers' plans, but Hunt, he's definitely benefited from Hunt being there and from Smith leaving, obviously.
Mm.
I think that Mamadi Kamara has benefited from Hunt, believing in him. I think that Tivonge Rashisha.
When no one else does, bless him.
Yeah, yeah, well, someone's got it. And this is not nice. But anyway, but also, Rashisha, another one.
Mm.
And I think that the impact to Stickland, there's another one who was
Yeah.
able to come through and have a good performance under a guy who's managed him in 11-a-side games before. So, yeah, no, I think that Savage is probably the guy who leads the pack of people who have benefited the most from Hunt taking over the team, and I
Mm.
think we learned, but like when we talked to Nick Blackman about how he was working under Adkins and then working under Steve Bruce, just had night and day difference for how they connected and what that meant for his career. And I think it just shows you how much, your link with the coach makes a huge difference. So yeah, I think it's been huge for Savage.
Okay, so for the record, you're going Pereira, I'm going Savage as our official TTE podcast hosts player of the
And
season.
I wouldn't
So
be surprised if nobody else I'm sure there'll be a TT roundtable or something like that, about all of this. I wouldn't be surprised if nobody else has those two players because there are, like you say, like they will have earned it, whoever wins it, because there are lots of players who could win it. So yeah.
much like you said, we'd make playoffs at the start of the season. I'm pretty sure I gave the prediction that Charlie Savage would win player of the season.
Okay, but it's not going to
I
happen.
think.
So, like, what's your point? Neither's
Well,
the
we'll
playoffs
this
now.
time next week we'll be talking about a win, but we'll also be talking about Nibs winning it. So
Right,
yeah,
right. Yeah. No, it's going to be
so
Button.
yeah. Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, yeah. All those people that have been pressing his button, literally. Right. EFL awards very quickly. We'll gloss over them because they've honestly, I mean,
Nonsense.
yeah. Um, we don't have any representation at all for team of the season. Likewise, Orient, who, regardless of what happens, have had a phenomenal season as well. Um, really, really disappointing that they've gone down this road. Not hugely surprising, given the way that they certainly in public spheres of been potentially towards our club and other clubs as well. I'm not going to read it all out, but there are ones that you'd expect. There are ones that you probably wouldn't have expected. It's all out there. You can go and have a look. Tyler Bindon was nominated for EFL Young Player of the Season in terms of League One. He did not get that either. Richard Kone of Wickham got that.
He got
Um,
both of them. He got young player and player of the season.
there you go. The
Couldn't
the
pull one
absolute
out when it counted, though, could you, though, Richard?
exactly still in Tyler Bindon's pocket.
Yeah.
The other quite disturbing thing about this, and this is where I have a real issue with these awards, is that Chris Davis of Birmingham, who spent, not him, but the club that he works for, spent an absolute fortune to get promoted, won a manager of the season.
Yeah, that one's
Now,
odd, isn't it?
the criteria for that is is unbeknownst to us. We're just, an unprofessional joke of a podcast. But I have to say that that is a real slap in the face for a lot of managers, not least Noel Hunt. Richie Wellens you could talk about.
I was going to
Um,
say Wellens for me is the one, like, because Leighton Orient had such an awful start, to the point where I was maligning that result for ages and ages through this season, and have just been probably the best team in the league in the second
yeah.
half of the season. Like, that's who we've had to compete with. So,
The
yeah.
other one, and it's not going to be popular, but Nathan Jones has done a really good job at Charlton. Very, very difficult start. We all saw him at the start of the season when he absolutely lost his rag with his team and the reporter and our club when we beat them, at the
That
start of
was
the
a
season.
really funny time where he lost to us twice at the Medeski in between, and in the period in between they won or like drew every single game. So went on an incredible run, bookended by losing to Ruben,
Yeah.
the guy who he lost his job to at Southampton. So that was quite funny.
And I think, and this is never going to happen, but I feel like if you are a manager of a club and you spend over X amount in the transfer market in the summer, that and this is I'm probably going to get shot down for this by a number of people, but that should instantly disqualify you, I feel, from being manager of the year, because the expectation is if you spend that amount, you got to work with that. There are
Yeah.
some incredible managers in League One that didn't even get a nomination. I just think to have, no disrespect to Chris Davis. Like, I'm sure he's a lovely player. I'm sure he's a great coach, whatever. You still got to work with what you got. But they had everything given to them in terms of the war chest that they had in terms of the
Yeah.
money. And then to go, yeah, well done, mate.
Right.
Like, I
Good
don't
job.
know, it just feels a bit, and I'm not sat here going, oh, it should have been Noel Hunt and everyone's an idiot. But like, just consideration for the job that other people have done
Yeah,
under,
yeah.
crippling circumstances at kind of smaller to medium sized clubs. I just think it's ridiculous. I really do.
I'll
Um,
talk. I'll give one, not like devil's advocate to that, but to the other club that spends a lot in the division's obviously been Wrexham. But I want to give a little shout out to Max Cleworth, who's now played all the way up from, I think, non-league all the way up into League One, and he made it into the player of the team of the season for League One as well. Like, that's what you want to see. It kind of reminds me of that Southampton team that came up with Lallana and Ricky
yeah,
Lambert and all that, and
Mane.
that kind of like grew, as they went through the divisions. Like, that's great to see. That's more exciting than yeah, that's more exciting than purchasing the best players of the
Yeah,
other teams in the division, thus hurting the other teams that might be competing with you. And then yeah,
exactly.
I didn't know you were going to go on a rant about this, but I like it. This is good.
It's, it's not. I mean, look, this is the way football works, right? Who is the most glamorous? Who shouts the loudest? They're always going to get the awards. Fine, whatever. It's reality. But I just feel sometimes the criteria is massively stacked. And when you look at what we've overcome as a football club and are continuing to overcome, I just think one player in there would have been great. Oh, well done. Like just
Yeah,
just
yeah.
some sort of wider acknowledgement of that. And it would have been great if it was Bindon because he's already leaving anyway.
I should have been
So
Kamara.
you're making it out like I've got a massive issue. I haven't. I just don't think he's great. I
No, yeah.
like him. I want to like him. I want him to be brilliant, but he's not brilliant.
No issue with Mamadi Kamara. Big issue with Chris Davies.
Yeah, exactly. In the EFL. But look, that's where we are. They've done it. It's all done and dusted, all in the history books. Yeah. I mean, when we've got players in the championship team of the season next season, then come at me.
Don't yeah.
Um, we're gonna do the mailbag because there's a few little bits in there as well. Got a few alternative a few alternative methods of communication this week. So it's very exciting. So give us a minute and we will get back into the mailbag.
I bet it's gonna go.
Send in your views to the tilehurstend@gmail.com and have your say in the mailbag.
Welcome back to episode 417 of the Tilehurst podcast. We are back with a mailbag. A few little bits and bobs here, really, to talk about. We've got Alex Lovell. Welcome back, sir. He's getting back on the pod, really. We haven't had him
Yeah,
back for
been a
ages.
little while.
Loads of, we need to make a list for the summer and go, this is who we want to talk to.
Yeah.
Loads of people at the club I want to talk to as well. But anyway, so Alex Lovell, always great questions. Do you think we will see the home kit for next season being used in the Barnsley game? What's interesting is he's not on X, and I put that in my tweet.
Oh, you did? Okay. I wondered, I actually that thought crossed my mind as well, because I know that Tim kind of pulled the
Dropped it.
wool, pulled the home shirt over our eyes with that one
Polyester,
last year.
recycled
Yeah.
plastic. Yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead.
Or do you think we will see the current home kit given the send off it deserves, given that it's one of the best in modern times, apart from the 150 season? As always, loving the work, gents. Thanks for the entertainment provided over this mad season. It has been a mad
It
season.
has been a mad season, and like it's funny, like you were just talking about stuff for the summer, and I haven't thought about it because we did the I don't know, the iconic 11s with like our favorite players last year. I haven't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
thought about the off season at all because, like you said, I'm not really ready for it to end just yet. Just yet. We
No,
need three
exactly.
more games first, or four
Do
more from here.
you do you think we see the new? I think we do see the new home shirt.
Um,
I feel like we did. I don't know. Something tells me. I,
I don't
I,
know,
I mean, I
like
really. We talk about the shirts actually and what the price are is in the preview, but I really like this season's home shirt. I have to say.
we'll talk about the shirts and man of the people,
But
Ben
yeah,
Thomas.
but like,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
I feel like we will. I just feel like we might see it.
Yeah, you might be right. Although I don't, I actually no. I'm going to say no, we won't, because last year, we talked about this earlier. Like we didn't have anything going into the last game other than just like, can we score some goals? That was the most
Mm.
excitement there was, and we finished what 17th or something like that last year. So it was done. Whereas I think that with it, being there's a possibility that we make the playoffs and that we have more games to play, I think that the club will elect to keep us going out in the same, shirt that we would then be wearing for the playoff campaign.
I I don't know because they've been on sale for a long time. I would talk about well, no, we did that in preview.
I
But
think
the
that's
shirts, the
partly,
shirts are cheap, right? And
yeah,
they've
no,
been
we
on
did.
sale for a long time, as in like price wise.
Well, yeah, and we talked about how, like, we had some concern, worries when Fanatics came in, but they have done a good job in making more
That's been amazing.
stuff available. Definitely this season in particular, I think has been particularly notable.
Mm.
Which has been great to see because like it's good for the club to be able to make a little bit more money. Or I mean, like if the club is selling more through the store, I'm sure they have some kind of agreement with Fanatics, but if
True.
the club is selling more stuff, they can get a better agreement. Bloody, bloody, blah. I don't know anything about business. Carry on.
I yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know. I feel like Saturday's going to be a massive day for this football club. I feel like there's going to be some news before. I'm not. This is not me being in the know
You
or
got to
anything. Like
stop
it's just
saying
my
things
prediction.
like this. Yeah. You
I just
always.
feel like going into the game, I feel like there will be some news on the ownership front. I do. I just feel it. I think there's going to be some surprises on the day in terms of match day entertainment and all this kind of stuff. I just feel that the shirt might be dropping. The club have definitely got them though. I reckon they're in the bowels of the stadium, or if not, they're in Tim's spare room for
You think
sure.
they're in the same stand as the Fat Bird? Just wondering. They
Well, the fat bird's
accidentally
gone,
put the.
hasn't it? Technically, so
You get like your
it's not
shirt and you're
about
like, oh, it looks amazing. Doesn't smell good though. Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So that's a problem.
So I was like fat. Um, yeah, the fat bird. God, what a mental season this has been.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to answer your question, I think it will be. Ross says no, but
Okay.
we go again. We see what happens. Ian on X, how are you? Hope you're well, sir. Thanks for dropping in. I love it when people like message the question. I think that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got this, and I was like, oh, what's this? Question for the pod. Where would you rank this season compared to 106 and 2012? It's
Oh,
got to be up there for me. I mean, that's a really
those
good
are
question.
it's a really good question with some really big competitors there. I mean,
I think you leave 106 out of it. I always leave because that was a one-off, never to be repeated. I know, obviously, Birmingham have done well with the points this year, but the championship, based on the time that we did it and the way football was, and the fact that we again
well,
didn't spend a lot of money to do it, and it was completely unexpected. I think 106 is kind of one of those things that almost didn't happen now
mhm.
in terms of that imagination thing. 2012 is I mean, what do you think?
I mean, like that's difficult for me too, because like 2012. was like right when I turned 18. So I mean, like
Yeah.
it's pretty high emotion event for me as well, and
What,
especially
10 and
because like,
18 or the
well, turning
two?
18, yes, but like the promotion, happening then, and it being, like my team versus, my dad's team all season, or towards the back half of the season, in
Mm.
Southampton for the run in. Like that season is important to my memory and my family,
Yeah.
remember that season very well. I think the ones that I compare, this one to, I think that we can all agree that it's been much better than the Yap Stam season. Even the one where we went up, like, or we didn't go up, like we came
Got to the
third.
final.
Yeah,
The
yeah, and lost
beginning
in
of
the
the end.
final.
Yeah.
Right, the beginning of the end. Yeah, exactly. Why Huddersfield owe us.
Yeah. Indeed.
So yeah, I don't know.
I really like Amsterdam,
Okay, that's fine.
but that's a different pod. Um, I
That is a different pod, actually. I'll write that down for the summer.
yeah.
The Yap Stam
Why
defense pod.
Amsterdam was all right.
Yeah.
Um, I I think the last month of the 2012 promotion was incredible. So like from April when we went to West Ham was March. We had West Ham away, we had Southampton away, we had Brighton away,
Right.
and then we had not like these were big teams that we were going to and getting points off and with very, very impressive performances. They are those three certainly are up there with probably my most favourite away days as a Reading fan. And then ironically, the last game of that season we go to Birmingham. I think it was like 12 noon,
Yeah.
horrendous weather, and that was inflatable day, and it was the worst performance I think I've ever seen on the road.
We were
You know,
bad.
and
Yeah.
we were cheering Birmingham goals because none of it mattered. We were going up, but I feel like there is something incredibly special about this particular team, and the way in which they have kept going and the way in which they've risen to key moments in the season.
Hmm.
Whether that's losing a manager, key players, points, not points deductions this season, but just everything that's been going on and the way they've still kept going, and not one of them has complained publicly that I can remember.
Hmm.
Same with the managers as well, and
And it's been rare to see two bad performances in a row this year. Like
absolutely,
there were a lot of capitulations in previous seasons and kind of like weeks whereby we knew that we'd be, we maybe put in a bad performance against a team that we would be expected to compete with or beat at home,
yeah,
and then, the next game we play against like a decent team and things could go really poorly in that game.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whereas this season, I just don't remember, like, I'm sure someone can tell, oh, these two, but I don't remember two really horrid performances that didn't, that were both losses in a row. I think maybe there was like a little bit in December where we lost twice in a row. Uh,
Yeah, we weren't good around December.
Right, right. But other than that, like they've been very good at rebounding this year. If they have a
Yeah,
bad performance, they come back and they set it right. I think the Wrexham win at home was definitely one of those. And they've shown that they can beat, even some of the best teams in the division. They
yeah.
didn't lose to Birmingham this year, which is pretty impressive. I have to check and see if any other team managed that this year. So yeah, I think that it has been a really remarkable season, and I think that it's not quite at the level of those two seasons. This one, because we've had to be so worried about what's going on off the field, and there have been some things that have been very distracting this
We-
year. But it has been one of the best.
if we're going to go up, we've obviously got to do it through the playoffs.
Hmm.
And in order to do that, this team would have to become the first ever Reading side in history to win a playoff final. So if they do that, do you feel that they then overtake 2012?
Um,
That's a really good question I've
That
just asked, by the
that
way.
is a good question you've just asked because I almost feel like it would come down to like how they perform in the like in the next season
Yeah,
then
yeah.
because like the problem with 2012 was that they went on that incredible run in the back half of the season
I
where
think
just
it
like
was
nobody
incredible.
could beat them. But that kind of led to a situation whereby the squad just was not ready for the Premier League, and there was obviously a lot of stuff going on off the field. And I think that it just led to a bunch of no real cohesion with the players that were brought in.
Mhm.
So like I think it's tough that season. Like I think we were don't get me wrong. Like, I think we should have been the champions that season. Like, I think that we were at that time a club that was bouncing around that sort of, part of the championship table anyway. So, in
Yeah.
that league where it could be anyone, you never know who's going to put together a thing. But I think that we went almost a little bit too fast that year. And so, like, now when I look back at 2012, I can see the flaws in the team and the chinks in the armor. But looking at this team, it's a pretty solid core. So if this team went up into the championship, and won that playoff final, whatever, they already have like a lot of momentum behind them from that. I think it's a case of you add bits to this team, but you give this core a go in the championship for sure.
And I think they would cope. I think they would. I think the togetherness and the way in which they understand each other, much like we said with the under 18s last week, there is a there is definitely a consistent cohesion that we see with that team. I don't know. I just feel like if they do go up through the playoffs, it would be the first time ever that a Reading team's done that.
Talking
Um,
of cohesion in that team, here's another question for you. I was thinking about this with regards to squad composition in the championship and how we used to run into issues with horribly bloated squads. And Wrexham now have a horribly bloated squad that's going to go into the championship. And I was looking at their assets and thinking like who they could actually sell. And I'm like, if we go up, is there a world whereby we can buy back our striker who must not be named next season? Because he's one of the few saleable assets that they actually have. He's not in his 30s, and he has recent, goal scoring record.
well, I tell you, my opinion on that is that Wrexham will go out and buy Kiefer Moore.
Okay,
So,
yeah, yeah.
that then
I think that's a
that's
good
going to have to
shout.
shunt at least one of them out of the door. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. I don't think he'll be, well, I don't think it'll be a hugely popular signing personally, because I'm
It'd be
always a bit
interesting,
like
wouldn't it?
he came back and he did really well, right?
Yeah.
But you come back a third time. Yeah.
I was thinking about this recently because I saw that Billy Sharp has been promoted again,
Yeah.
which is fun, and he's at his second time at Doncaster.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember him as originally at Doncaster, but he's much more of a Sheffield United boy. And I didn't realize he went back to Sheffield a third time. So he started there, didn't really work out, had to go elsewhere to like kickstart his career. And he went back to Sheffield United after Doncaster, didn't work out, had to go off elsewhere to start his career again. And then once he was finally up and running, everything's going, then he went back to Sheffield United. Then his goal record was pretty good. So I just kind of thinking like third stints at clubs, like it doesn't happen super, super often. And like what players who have maybe done two stints here already, which is tough to find these days. But yeah, would you accept a third stint from any other players?
And also, I don't. They really like him there by the looks of it, and
Yeah,
I
they
don't.
do. Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. Why are we talking about? Why are we talking? Why have you got
I
me
don't
down this
know.
road again? I don't want to
Sorry.
talk about him.
Move me on to something different. It's the mailbag. It's the listeners part of the show that I've derailed.
Yeah, well, yeah, we are where we are with that really, but I don't think I don't think it's what do I think? I yeah, I wouldn't be keen on it. I don't think it's a million miles from happening, but I don't think it will.
A
So
hat trick of stints. It can only happen with
yes,
academy players, really, can't it?
exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Tom Sheeran, Jesus lads, great second half performance against the cast. I don't know if he means us or the team, but we'll take it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
His fear, is that Orient seem to find another gear every time. We will beat Barnsley Saturday, but do you think Huddersfield can hinder the mighty O's? Nail biting. Um, it is. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That Barnsley game that they played was a real sickener. When but Barnsley going two goals to the good and then kind of collapsing, or
yeah.
Orient playing really well. I don't know. I didn't watch the game, but
Well, the
yeah,
other
that
one
one.
was when they were losing to Cambridge and they won 2-1.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they find a way to win. And I would agree with Tom's point in the fact that actually I think we win on Saturday. Regardless, I think we win. The key question is whether or not Huddersfield can allow us to better Orient's result, because that's all we need to do, right? That's
right,
it. We
right.
get the same result. We don't get it. We better them and we're fine. So on paper, it's pretty simple, but we are relying on Huddersfield to kind of come out of nowhere and buck the form trend. Good job I said that in the right order, wouldn't it? Otherwise, it would
Yeah,
have been
yeah,
too
you did well
simple.
there.
Uh, and then us to get the points we need. So it it's always really difficult if you're relying on other results as well, I think. And from being in the stands so often with that, it takes its toll mentally because you're like, I want to concentrate on what we're doing, but actually I've always got to have someone with not a
I'm
radio,
looking forward to,
phone or
I'll
whatever.
be watching it on my phone, on the TV, obviously. So I'm very much looking forward to every single time there's like the ball goes out of play, the cameraman finding a reason to cut
Yeah.
to Reading fans on their phones, like checking the Orient result or whatever.
Do,
Like,
Do you
it's
know
going to
what?
be
If
there.
if you are one of those people that can get signal inside the seated bowl whilst the game's going on,
That's true.
you let me know who your provider is because good God, my phone is useless.
Well, what everyone needs to
Absolutely
do,
useless.
get one of those ham radios that you can just put
Yeah.
up to your ear again, right? Take that in with your old school football whistle, all
Yeah.
right? That does the
The
little,
clacker.
yeah, what's it called? A clapper?
Like, it's a clacker, isn't it? So you
A
spin it
clacker.
and it just goes.
Yes, wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. Sorry, sometimes I forget
I
where I'm from.
I don't know, Tom. I think we will win, mate. I do. I don't know enough about how Huddersfield have. But I know they're down there in the form table, but I just Leighton Orient, it's just so difficult because they just find a way to win. Um,
Yeah, they've been coming from behind, which, to be fair, is something that Reading have been medium at best in the last few weeks. Hey, I mean, like, what can you do with Huddersfield? They certainly haven't shown up when we've needed them to. Their last four games have been kind of weird, and they've played either relegation candidates or playoff candidates. So they've had like no game where they've just been like right down the middle, played some normal ass team. But I think their season kind of fell apart, and they're very much on the beach at this point. I'd say it'll just be down to whether they really want to send their fans home, from the season with something to cheer about, or
yeah, I mean they've really
but yeah,
collapsed, haven't they? Unfortunately,
it
and
is.
that's the
Yeah.
problem is that there's nothing.
Yeah, no, and they're
There's
looking at
no
a
ground.
rebuild too, I think. So yeah, that's it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah. Um, Tom Hill, oh dear sweet Tom Hill, should I prioritize very important upcoming exams, my wallet and life, or come down for the game on Saturday?
The
Um,
second one.
Yeah. Are you an actual egg, Tom? Like, what are you talking about? Why would you not come to the biggest game? You're only coming from Macclesfield. It's not like you're coming from Portland, Maine in America, is it?
Right, exactly. Tom, this is probably you've been alive for 6 minutes, so this is literally the biggest game that you've ever seen. So yeah, you've got
Yeah,
to come down for this one. Nothing can top this, not even Harbour Town getting beaten by the mighty Reading.
exactly. I mean, listen, I say this as a teacher. No exams are really important. Like, there's always a way around. Like, they're not, are they?
No,
There's always a way
well,
around it.
yeah, no, I just, I mean, like, whether or not I agree with you, I'm just wondering whether you should get on video. No exams are important, so that's going to come back and haunt you at some point.
Yeah, probably. But like, there's always a way around it. Wallet, that's a different. Like, it is. I get it's expensive. I was looking to train tickets to Cardiff the other day because I wanted
Oh
to go
yeah.
and do something that, rather than drive. Unreal. Like I was like, what? Someone pressed the right button here. Like, it's actually disgusting train tickets in this country.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
vomit inducing at the moment. And he's just put and life. Don't know what you mean.
He might be busy, but no,
I
that's not
mean,
important. Like plans, like whatever.
yeah, if you can, mate, get down there because it's you'll kick yourself if you don't. You really will. Um, and then someone's
But don't get on
DQ.
the field. Whatever you do, don't get
Don't
on
get on
the
the field.
field.
Do not
Yeah,
get on
yeah,
the
yeah.
field because you'll be hounded out of there.
Right.
Um, we did have a question from Blue Sky actually. Let me just that's the last one.
All right.
Teacher Liam, look at
There
that.
you go.
Like
Ask
I
Teacher
planned
Liam.
it.
Perfect. Teacher Liam, what do you think about exams? That's my question.
Um, he says, how many tickets will we sell for Wembley? Probably 40,000, mate. Like we
Yeah,
always.
I'd say so. More than
And I'm
however
not
many Wickham would take.
normally I'd be like, where have all these people? But rah, when I've been sat at home games on a Tuesday night this season with literally the only person in my block.
Right.
But this time, fill your boots.
Yeah.
Bring everybody.
This
Bring
time,
your
you and
dog,
Robbie are going
bring
to
your
have to
cat.
sit next to each other rather than
Yeah.
separate in the block, you know? So
Well, if he's got a box, I'm going to see if we can get in there.
I like the lad. I think he said, I can't remember. It's one of the other lads, dad, maybe Chem Campbell's dad or something, but he always wears like a big Detroit Lions hat. Whenever
Yeah.
you see you, so you can always pick him out in the. I just like seeing the Reading dads. It's always
Yeah,
kind of
it's
fun
good.
to me. Should make a
It's
dad
nice.
calendar, Reading dads calendar. Get all the
That's what.
dads, sell it for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Uh, that's what I'm saying, man. Like I think people would like it. They do this thing over here where the
Don't you mean
Bruins.
prostate cancer?
No, 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 because you're going to sell the Racy Dads calendar to the Reading fan ladies as part of a fundraiser for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And that's October. So that's closer to the next year anyway for the calendar creation. So all we need is Robbie to pull out his like Strictly Come Dancing shirt and not a whole lot else. And then, like, jobs are good. And we've got a calendar and we need 11 more months.
Crikey.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell the impact that doing this podcast has had on us this season. This is what we're reduced to.
Harvey, can we add a couple more million to your contract if your dad
Yeah.
comes and does a calendar photo
This is what
shoot
happens.
for
Yeah,
us?
exactly.
Yeah. This is
Um,
what's actually going to drop on the final day of the season.
that's where we'll be up for it, wouldn't
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
it?
Healthy family, that lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think we sell as many as we can get, to be honest with you, Liam. I do. I think there'll be a massive following of people that
I think we've got the biggest fan base of the teams that are in the playoff hunt outside of maybe Charlton.
Charlton, yeah.
Yeah,
Stockport,
that's a
no,
big club.
Wickham, absolutely not.
Yeah.
They might take like 6 people if they got there.
Right, yeah.
But
If they can,
Charlton are a really big team, like massive team.
yeah.
That's the one you probably don't want as a final in terms of tickets, because that would be, well, I mean, it'd be good for the neutrals.
And make Wembley look good. Like have the big
exactly.
red wall, big blue wall. Like that would be kind of fun. I just really don't want to have to play Stockport at any point. And right now, Stockport just creeps into third place. So that would mean that if we did sneak in, take that 6th spot, we would be facing Stockport right now, which is something I want nothing to do with. So yeah.
And also we got to go Stockport midweek, which is not good for travel and everything else and people's lives. So yeah, tricky one. But yeah, I think big one really. We're going to get into the preview. It's going to be a short one because it's fairly easy, fairly straightforward. So we'll be back on episode 417 of the Tilehurst podcast. Right, for whom the bell tolls. This is a battle against the Tykes. We have to better Leighton Orient's result. If you're struggling to being patronising, if you're struggling to understand that, if we draw, they need to lose. If we win, they need to draw or lose. That is it.
Yeah.
That is literally the only way, because the goal difference is like an extra point. So we both win, we both draw, it's Leighton Orient. We both lose, it's Leighton Orient. So we have to better their result. I think we will win. I think we will win comfortably against Barnsley. I think there will be about 18, 19,000 there. I think most of those people will be dressed in blue and white because it's blue and white day. So scarves, shirts, everything.
The whole nine.
The whole nine, yeah, exactly. Just focusing on ourselves, what do you anticipate? What do you think the result will be on Saturday?
I do. I think there's a good chance that we'll get up and past that 68 goals mark. And just as a reminder, we're on 66. So Barnsley have been involved in some Barnstormers. They have, in their last 3 games, there's been a total of, let me check, 20 goals scored. So they lost 6
in the game collectively.
Collectively, yeah. So they
lost. They haven't scored 20 goals in the last.
No.
Like, okay.
They lost 6-2 to Barnsley. So by the way, get like 7 or 8, and suddenly that goal difference is looking assailable, very assailable after all. But they also obviously lost 4-3 to Leighton Orient in a moment that wasn't so good for us. I think there'll be goals in this one. I think, what was the result earlier this season? Like 2-2 or something like that. I think it was another score draw. So yeah, we've had some good games with Barnsley in recent years.
Did you say that Barnsley lost 6-2 to Barnsley?
To Birmingham. I probably said Barnsley though.
Right, they lost 6-2 to Birmingham.
Yeah,
Okay. That makes
sorry.
me feel a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just making your brain melt. Sorry. Yeah, they lost 6-2 to Birmingham,
Fine.
the fake team who's got apparently the best coach in the division, a man who hasn't
Yeah.
managed before this year, best coach
Scandal.
in the division. Yeah, no, I think there's going to be a lot of goals. I think there's going to be moments in this game whereby Orient are in, where we're in. You know, I think the it's going to swing around madly, and the only thing that's going to matter is where we're at 5 o'clock, obviously. So, yeah,
Yeah.
hold on to your butts, Reading fans. This is going to be I just kind of hope that it isn't like the case that Orient are like 2 or 3 nil up in like 20 minutes, and the whole day has a little bit of a oh kind of feeling to it. You know, like that would be a little bit
Mm.
disappointing. I hope that even if Huddersfield aren't able to beat Orient, I hope that they're able to keep it a game until the second half, basically, so that, you know, it at least gives the fans, you know, like a good couple hours of excitement.
Yeah, true. Um, so fun story about the shirts. I don't actually own a Reading shirt, home shirt currently. It's not in my locker at all. So I thought I'll get one for Saturday, blue and white day. Went online and managed to find one for £18. Realized that that was a good price. So I went back to buy one this morning, and they were £41. I got it for £41 with a discount code as well. So I did what any sane person would do. I messaged the store manager of the shop at the Stade de SCL, Dale Y, and said, "Look, what's going on?" So it's an admin error. They're all £18. Give it an hour, sort them all out. Sure enough, they are. So
I
if you
did
go
what
into
any sane person would do. I texted the guy who runs the store.
exactly right. Do you
Yeah,
know what? He's agreed to come on the pod though in
that
the
would be
pre
good. That would be good.
that'd be nice to talk to him. But yeah, so they're £18 in the shop. They're £18 online. So yeah, £18 for the current home shirt, which is a real beauty. I mean, I
It
love
is
the
a
red
beaut.
shirt.
Yeah.
Got the red shirt, fantastic. But to have a blue and white shirt would be fantastic. So yeah, £18. The other thing we need to say, and this has been backed, obviously the club has put out a statement today, or kind of a reminder, not a statement, because that sounds like something more major. Just that we are still under a suspended points thing. So any pitch incursions could be liable to a points deduction. So they've said basically stay off the pitch. And again, this has been backed by the supporters groups, fan groups, whatever, basically encouraging people to not go on the pitch, regardless of the result, because it could be tricky. So don't do that.
Please don't do that for mathematical reasons.
Mathematical.
We will be deducted points because of last season's pitch invasion. So we're only allowed a pitch invasion every other season. And
Correct.
unfortunately, we are not out of our pitch invasion window just yet. But next, get on. Actually, no, I'm not going to say that. I didn't say anything about when to, go to the. Don't ever get on the pitch. That's for the players. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there we have it. I think there's going to be some surprises. Be interesting to see who plays the Purple Turtle stage
Yeah.
on Saturday in the fan zone. Be very interesting to see that.
Maybe it's me all the way from
Maybe it's
Portland,
you.
Maine.
You're
Yeah.
going to bring your guitar and your vibes.
I'll bring my stenogram or whatever that weird thing that makes synthesizer noises is. Yeah. Sorry, there's a kid going up and down the street on a motorized go-kart. So if you hear any weird noises, that's what
Tell them
that
shut
is.
up. Tell them we're recording a pod.
Yeah,
Have,
exactly.
have some
Screaming
respect.
children. Ah,
That's it. Next time we speak to you, we will hopefully be in the playoffs, and we'll be
yeah.
talking about who we're playing and how that's going to go and all this kind of stuff. Yeah,
Make sure you're sitting
it's
down. Keep your heart healthy.
yeah.
Try whatever you need to do to make sure that your equilibrium is exactly where it needs to be. Make sure you've
Drink
got
some
that set
H2O.
up.
Got mine here.
Yeah,
Some
yep.
delicious.
Drink some water. Stay hydrated. All right, it's going to be very exciting. There's going to be lots of stress on your body unless
Yeah,
Lorient score two in 15 minutes. So just try to make a plan for what if we don't get into the playoffs before the game. So that you've got something to do to make yourself happy if it's a
get a
sad evening.
kebab.
Yeah, get a kebab, exactly. Go and get the kebab too. Don't get it delivered by the delivery man. Go and get it so that the guy can call you boss. All right?
Yeah,
That will
it
make you
may feel
feel
bad.
better. So
It
make
will.
a plan for in case it doesn't go well, but it's going to go well.
Um, we might have a bonus interview, like a short interview later on in the week. We might have. The key word is might. We might not. We might. Who knows? But yeah, we'll keep you posted on that as the week progresses. It is only Tuesday morning, guys, so we've got a long way to go until Saturday. It's going to be a flipping long week,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but we'll get there. We've been through hell and high water to get to this point in the season, and if ever there was a team or a club who deserves something, it's ours. Consistently swum against the tide, and yet we're still here. I'll end this pod by saying that fortune favours the bold, and we've definitely been bold this season. So just put it all out there. We're making the playoffs, guys. Keep saying it. Say it to yourself in the mirror. Say it to a random stranger. Say it to the pigeons. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Say it
Just
to
say
people
that.
in August 2024.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes, do what Russ did and predicted it. I could do that. Oh, give us the lottery numbers next, but it wouldn't work 'cause it was a year ago. So, yeah.
I can tell you last August is not lottery numbers, though. They're really useful.
Yeah, because yeah. Why was I even going to answer that with a stupid answer? Just yeah, fine. Try and have a good week, Ross. Enjoy the whatever this is, the calm before the storm,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep. The longest week.
The longest week, and we'll see you next week, guys. Come on, just do it. Just
Just do
get it
it.
done. Just
Just
get
do
in the
it.
playoffs, get in the POs. We deserve it. We
Yeah.
massively deserve this. So whatever happens, enjoy it. Stay safe, and come on, you Arts.